You are trapped in a role you did not choose. Yet you defend it daily with words, explanations, and justifications that feel necessary, even noble. You believe that if they finally understand you, they will treat you differently. That belief has kept you obedient longer than any chain. You explain because you fear misinterpretation. You explain because you fear conflict. You explain because silence feels like loss of control. But the cruel truth is this: every explanation tightens the net. You are not clarifying your position, you are signaling weakness. You are signaling availability, manageability, and a willingness to be handled. I have seen rulers fall not because they were cruel, but because they begged to be understood. In courts of power, the one who explains is already on trial. You think your words are bridges, but they are supply lines. Opponents exploit your need to be seen as reasonable, fair, and good, while they adjust demands, delays, and disrespect with surgical precision. The trap is devastatingly simple. The more you explain, the more they learn how to move you, stall you, guilt you, and extract from you without committing anything in return. You survive by telling yourself a moral fantasy, that clarity creates harmony and honesty creates trust. But power does not reward intention. It responds to leverage, timing, and consequence. You imagine a world governed by understanding. You live in one governed by perception. And perception is shaped not by your truth, but by your boundaries. When you explain, you collapse the distance that protects authority. When distance collapses, hierarchy reverses. You already know the pattern but refuse to name it. You send a long message to smooth tension, and the reply comes late or not at all. You justify a decision at work, and suddenly it is open for negotiation. You explain why you cannot comply, and they push harder because now they know where the wall is thin. Over-communication teaches others how to pressure you. Each explanation reveals fears, limits, and pressure points. You call it maturity. In truth, it is attrition. Those who seek to appear good at all times are ruined among those who are not. The battlefield has not softened this law, it has refined it. The arena is no longer a palace courtyard, but an inbox, a meeting room, a relationship, a family system. The weapons are not swords, but expectations, silence, insinuation, and delay. Power flows toward those who can withhold without explanation, because withholding creates uncertainty. Uncertainty forces others to reveal themselves. You were conditioned early into obedience disguised as virtue. Approval felt like safety. Disagreement risked abandonment. Explanation felt like equilibrium restored. Fear taught you to manage emotions that were not yours. Guilt taught you to take responsibility for outcomes you did not create. Conflict avoidance trained you to surrender ground before it was contested. This was once survival. Now it is costing you command over your own position. Notice how this conditioning shows up in small humiliations you barely register. You answer immediately. You soften statements with reasons. You defend boundaries as if they are proposals. You explain silence as if it were a crime. And each time the other side grows bolder. Not because they hate you, but because they sense no consequence. Power flows like water toward least resistance, and your explanations are channels carved straight through your authority. Contrast this with how power actually operates. Power does not announce itself. It positions, it does not argue. It waits, it does not explain. It lets outcomes speak. In war, the general who reveals his plan invites sabotage. The one who moves quietly forces the enemy to react blind. In strategy, effort decreases as control increases. Once leverage is established, motion becomes unnecessary. The strongest position is not dominance through force, but dominance through conditional presence, where access to you is earned, not assumed. You mistook activity for influence and speech for command. Influence is felt when your absence changes behavior, not when your words fill space. Command is established when others adjust without being told, when they sense that missteps carry cost, even if no threat is spoken. This is why silence terrifies those accustomed to your explanations. Silence removes their map. They no longer know how to provoke, stall, or extract reassurance. Deprived of guidance, they begin to change. I have seen this reversal countless times. The moment you stop explaining, they grow anxious. They ask more questions. They accuse you of being distant, cold, or different. This is not concern, it is reconnaissance. They are probing the new terrain, testing whether silence is a tactic or a phase. If you break here and explain, you teach them that pressure works. If you hold, you force adaptation. When someone says you have changed after you stop justifying yourself, they mean your behavior is no longer predictable enough to exploit. This is not loss of connection. It is loss of control on their side. The tactical reframe is simple and brutal. Unpredictability is not cruelty, it is leverage. By saying less, you are not withdrawing humanity. You are withdrawing permission. You fear misinterpretation. But misinterpretation denies others certainty. And certainty is the currency of manipulation. When you rush to correct narratives, you validate the idea that others are owed your inner world. They are not. Access is a resource, and resources must be rationed to retain value. Every structure of power understands this except you. You were trained to believe that being understood is the same as being respected. It is not. Respect is granted to those whose boundaries do not require defense, whose decisions do not require persuasion, whose silence is felt as weight, not absence. When you explain, you step down from command and enter negotiation. And negotiation is where those with less leverage are slowly bled. The cost of this naivety accumulates quietly. Socially, you become endlessly available and adjustable. Professionally, responsibility grows without authority or reward. Relationally, you attract those who need management, not partnership. Internally, self-command erodes, replaced by vigilance and the constant urge to clarify. This is attrition warfare. You are losing because you keep supplying the enemy with morale reports. Every explanation reveals fatigue. I have watched empires collapse not from invasion, but from rulers who answered every demand, soothed every grievance, and explained every delay until authority dissolved. The reversal begins not with confrontation, but with withdrawal. Step back to control the frame. Appear weaker by doing less, not more. Let them lead so you can observe motives without interference. Say less to become ungovernable. These are operational directives, not slogans. When you stop explaining, you reclaim time, attention, and emotional bandwidth. These are the true currencies of power. Imagine a simple shift. A message arrives demanding clarification. You do not respond immediately. When you do respond, you answer only what is necessary. No reasons, no apologies, no emotional cushioning. The other side fills the silence with projection. Urgency, entitlement, irritation appear. You gain intelligence without exposing position. This is flanking through stillness, advancing by not moving. Power consolidates when effort decreases. As you reduce output, the environment adjusts, subtly at first, then unmistakably. Something irreversible begins to move beneath the surface. You sense that a choice is approaching, not just for them, but for you. Because silence is not absence. It is a line being drawn, and once crossed, it cannot be erased. When you draw that line, others rush to test it. Not because they respond to your character, but because they were responding to your availability. Availability was always the soft underbelly of your position. The moment you stop explaining, the tone shifts. Requests sharpen, accusations appear. Concern is weaponized. This is not chaos. It is exposure. You are watching the true chain of command surface now that your words no longer cushion impulses. This moment unsettles even seasoned operators. It feels like loss before it feels like power. You mistake tension for danger when it is leverage forming. Power never arrives with comfort. It arrives as pressure redistributed when you stop explaining. You force others to carry weight they were outsourcing to you. Many resist because they depended on your self-betrayal to stabilize their position. Recognize the next pattern before it seduces you back. They provoke sarcasm, create crisis, or remind you of past favors. These are not spontaneous emotions. They are psychological operations meant to restore old supply lines. When supply is cut, the enemy retreats or launches a desperate push. Do not confuse desperation for dominance. This is where most people fail. They crave relief more than control. Relief comes disguised as explanation. Here is the recognition you cannot ignore. Those who demand explanations never offered you clarity. They moved when it suited them, delayed when it benefited them, and justified nothing. Yet you held yourself to a higher standard. That standard kept you predictable. Reciprocity is not granted through fairness. It is enforced through boundaries. If they did not explain themselves to you, you owe them nothing beyond your decision. You were taught that silence is passive. It is not. Silence is an active position. It compresses the field and forces others to maneuver without intelligence. When you speak, you illuminate paths. When you withhold, you create fog. In fog, those without discipline reveal themselves quickly. They overreach. They expose impatience. They show contempt. Each reaction is data. You are no longer pleading your case. You are conducting reconnaissance. This is where the paradox sharpens. By appearing less invested, you gain leverage. You control tempo by withdrawing effort. You increase perceived value. I warned that those who try to win affection lose authority. You have lived this warning slowly. Affection purchased through explanation is fragile. Authority built through restraint endures. Look at the professional arena. You explain delays to preempt blame, and deadlines tighten. You justify scope limits and scope expands. You articulate every rationale, and your role becomes a negotiation table. Stop. Deliver outcomes, not narratives. Decisions, not diaries. Let the absence of explanation train others to respect the boundary of your function. In relationships, the pattern is clearer. You explain feelings to be understood, and they become tools. Vulnerabilities are stored, catalogued, and deployed when convenient. When you stop narrating your inner state, dynamics recalibrate. They must respond to behavior, not emotion. This is not cruelty. It is the restoration of equal footing. Intimacy without leverage is exposure. Intimacy with boundaries is alliance. You fear silence will make you seem cold. But coldness is perceived only by those who benefited from your warmth without cost. Those aligned with you will adjust. Those exploiting you will protest. Let them. Power is not maintained by unanimous approval. It is maintained by clarity of position. When you stop explaining, you clarify without speaking. Watch how language around you changes. They ask where you stand. They seek confirmation. They probe for reassurance. This signals that the old map no longer works. Each unanswered question forces recalibration. Each delayed response shifts balance. You teach without instructing. You command without announcing. This quiet authority unsettles those accustomed to managing you through guilt. I warned that rulers who fear being disliked become slaves to those they rule. When you chase being reasonable, you surrender being decisive. Decisiveness does not require explanation. It requires consequence. If boundaries are crossed and nothing happens, words were decoration. If access changes, silence becomes law. Here lies another recognition. When you stop explaining, some become polite and respectful. Others vanish. This is not coincidence. It is sorting. What disappears when you stop explaining was never loyalty. It was dependency. Dependency feeds on access without resistance. When resistance appears, it collapses. Loyalty remains when expectations are clear and consequences are real. This is why leaders speak less as they rise. Not from arrogance, but from precision. Each word carries weight when it is rare. Each silence carries gravity when it is intentional. Those below mistake this for detachment. Those above recognize it as discipline. You do not owe everyone your reasoning. You owe them consistency. Predictable boundaries build trust faster than emotional transparency. Transparency without structure invites manipulation. Structure without apology commands respect. This does not mean deception. It means selectivity. Reveal intentions to those with aligned incentives, not to those seeking advantage. Silence becomes a filter. Explanation becomes a reward. Once earned, clarity strengthens bonds. Given freely, it weakens them. Understand this, and the field tilts toward you without effort. You were conditioned to believe that being understood is safety. It is not. Being respected is safety. Respect does not require consensus. The need to explain is often the need to be approved. Approval is a weak currency. It inflates quickly and collapses under pressure. Watch who demands explanations. It is rarely those accountable to results. It is those seeking leverage, reassurance, or delay. By feeding explanations, you feed control. By withholding them, you reclaim it. This shift feels uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is withdrawal. You are detoxing from performative honesty. You learn to let outcomes speak. Silence becomes your audit trail. Consistency becomes your language. Over time, others adapt their behavior without a single argument. That is influence without friction. Notice how fewer conflicts require resolution. Most existed only because words created them. When you remove excess explanation, friction loses fuel. People begin preparing before approaching you. They self-edit. Your time becomes respected without you demanding it. This is the hidden dividend of restraint. You stop managing perceptions and start setting conditions. Conditions don't argue, they simply exist. Those who can operate within them stay. Those who cannot remove themselves. This is why power looks quiet from the outside. There is no performance, no explanation, no chase. Only position. Once position is established, words become optional. Silence becomes recognizable, and recognition becomes authority. Most men talk themselves out of authority. They reveal doubts, motives, and contingencies that should have remained private. Paragraph 137. Each explanation shrinks the frame. Each justification invites negotiation. Paragraph 138. Negotiation is not weakness, but unnecessary negotiation is. Paragraph 139. Strong positions are not defended loudly, they are occupied. Paragraph 140. When you stand firm without narration, others adjust their stance. Paragraph 141. You will notice fewer challenges. Resistance prefers noise, silence starves it. Paragraph 142. This is why confident men are misread as mysterious. Paragraph 143. Mystery is not created. It is preserved by restraint. Paragraph 144. People fill silence with projection. Often they project competence and certainty. Paragraph 145. The less you explain, the more capable you appear. Paragraph 146. This applies to leadership, attraction, and negotiation equally. Paragraph 147. Words should advance position, not comfort insecurity. Paragraph 148. If speech does not move leverage, reconsider it. Paragraph 149. Silence is not absence, it is structure. Paragraph 150. And structure is what power rests on. At first you will feel exposed. You are used to filling space to maintain connection. Paragraph 152. But connection built on constant explanation is fragile. Paragraph 153. Remove the crutch and true alignment reveals itself. Paragraph 154. Some will test you. They will push boundaries to see if the old version returns. Paragraph 155. Do not argue. Do not explain. Let behavior answer. Paragraph 156. Consistency ends tests faster than confrontation. Paragraph 157. Once the pattern is clear, respect replaces curiosity. Paragraph 158. Curiosity fades when there is nothing loose to pull. Paragraph 159. This is the difference between being interesting and being solid. Paragraph 160. Interesting invites attention, solid commands it. Paragraph 161. You stop being reactive. You become predictable in the right way. Paragraph 162. Predictability and boundaries creates freedom within them. Paragraph 163. Others relax because the rules are stable. Paragraph 164. Stability is felt before it is understood. Paragraph 165. And what is felt rarely needs explanation. You may notice a shift in how people speak to you. Fewer emotional appeals, more direct requests. This is respect reorganizing communication. When explanations disappear, intentions must be clean. People stop hiding behind confusion. Clarity becomes mandatory. You no longer manage feelings, you manage outcomes. This conserves energy and sharpens judgment. Your presence alone begins to set tone. Rooms recalibrate when you enter, not because you demand attention, but because you remove noise. Silence concentrates authority. This is why chaos avoids disciplined centers. Where you stand still, disorder cannot settle. Stillness is not inactivity, it is control. Control is the foundation of influence. At this stage you realize something subtle. You are no longer performing strength. You are simply organized internally. Others sense this coherence before you speak. They adjust posture, tone, and timing. This is social gravity. Gravity does not announce itself. It pulls. The need to be liked dissolves when self-respect stabilizes. You stop negotiating identity. Identity becomes fixed by action. When identity is stable, explanation becomes redundant. This is why powerful men appear calm in conflict. They are not suppressing emotion. They are not ruled by it. Emotion is information, not instruction. They receive it, process it, and act. Others react. Leaders respond. Reaction spends energy without direction. Response converts energy into outcome. When you stop reacting verbally, you gain time to choose position. Time is leverage most people give away freely. They rush to explain, defend, or justify. You pause. The pause shifts hierarchy. Silence forces the other party to reveal urgency. Urgency exposes priority. Priority exposes weakness. This is not manipulation, it is observation. Those uncomfortable with observation fear accountability. When you hold still, others move. Movement creates information. Information creates advantage. Advantage reduces the need for force. Force is always the last tool of the unprepared. You begin to notice how often people try to rush you. Rushing is a tactic. It bypasses judgment. When you refuse to be rushed, tactics fail. Silence stretches time back into your control. Deadlines lose their emotional charge. Only real constraints remain. This filters false urgency from true necessity. You respond to what matters, not what shouts. Shouting is the language of insecurity. Confidence speaks softly or not at all. This recalibration does not isolate you. It attracts those who operate cleanly. Clean operators respect clean boundaries. Noise dissipates around structure, and structure invites precision. Eventually, you stop counting paragraphs and start feeling alignment. Your actions and boundaries no longer contradict each other. There is no leakage of intent. What you do matches what you allow. This congruence is rare, and rarity is power. People test less when signals are clean. They respect what they cannot exploit. This is the quiet endgame. Not domination, not withdrawal. Position. From position, movement is deliberate. From position, speech is precise. From position, silence is understood. And being understood is no longer required. You no longer chase clarity from others. You generate it through consistency. Consistency removes ambiguity faster than explanation ever could. People stop guessing your limits. They already know. This predictability creates psychological safety without softness. Safety rooted in structure, not reassurance. Reassurance fades. Structure remains. Those who rely on chaos feel constrained by this. Those who value order feel relief. Your circle refines itself without confrontation. No announcements, no ultimatums, just alignment over time. What stays is compatible. What leaves was misaligned. This is not loss. It is calibration. And calibration is how power stabilizes.